I sure can. I sure can, little boy. So, have you ever done any of those DNA kits? Ancestry, 23andMe, any of them?
I have never done a DNA kit, but I have done a lot of ancestry research.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So, one Christmas, my wife and I decided it would be fun to gift each other the ancestry kits and to do them just to see what it broke down, because I had always been told a bunch of things from my family about my heritage and things like that. I'm like, well, let's see what actually shows up. Like, I at one point my dad had told me, and I haven't found it in ancestry because I have done some searching. My dad told me that I was like one of my great grandmas was a Seminole Native American.
Oh.
And so I'm like, let's see if it even shows up in there. So I did the scan. I got the kit. Unsurprised that it's mostly Great Britain. You know, English, Scottish, Irish. Not surprised because I knew I had Scottish on both sides of my family. My last name Ard, the ancestral spelling is AYRD or AIRD. So Aird, I guess, is how it was previously pronounced. There is a Loch Aird in Scotland. There is a Lake Ard in Scotland.
That's awesome.
So unsurprised there. I like that Ancestry even tries to, if you're from the US, it'll tell you where your ancestors migrated from based on your ancestry findings and whatnot. And so I already knew that a lot of the Ard side of my family, they settled it in Alabama in the South. Now I've actually never met any of that part of my family. My grandpa moved to Pennsylvania, and so whenever I went to visit my dad's side of the family, we went to Pennsylvania. And so and anyway, my dad's been down to Alabama. My older brother's been down to Alabama. He's met him. I have not.
Oh wow.
But I'm looking at the Ancestry DNA kit, and just seeing a bunch of oh yeah, no, I knew that this relative had done it, this relative had done it, this relative had done it. And I don't know if it's still a feature in the app, because they got rid of the dedicated Ancestry DNA app, and now it's just a feature of the Ancestry app.
Oh, okay.
But there used to be a feature where you could message people that you had DNA matches with in the Ancestry app. And I got a message on there from this lady. She says, "Hey, do you know Clyde Ard? I think he might be my father." And so I'm like, yeah, that's my grandpa. And I'm like, so you think my grandpa might be your father? So that would make you my half aunt?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. So she goes on. She tells me her story. She had been adopted. She had already found her mom's side of the family, but her mom, who apparently was still alive, wanted nothing to do with her. She got some information from her biological aunt, so her mom's sister, and she had some communication there, and that's where she got my grandfather's name from.
Interesting.
And so I'm like, yeah, he's my grandpa, but he's been dead for decades. And so I'm like, okay. I text my uncle, which in hindsight I should have called him. He explicitly told me as such. I'm like, so I did Ancestry DNA, and this lady's contacted me claiming to be your half sister. And he's like, that is not something you send over text, Joe.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, yes, but I'm from the texting generation.
Yes.
But yes, no, that is something I should have called him and actually discussed. So he's like, okay, well, he's sitting there trying to rationalize it, because this is his dad who would have stepped out on his mom. And he doesn't want to automatically assume
that. Yeah.
And so his first thought is actually based on stories of my grandpa's brother, so my uncle's uncle, um, uh, that he had been a rather rebellious and promiscuous and lived that lifestyle. And so his first thought was she's related, but not through grandpa, through crazy uncle.
Yeah.
And so he's like, is there any way that we can verify this? I'm like, well, I suppose if you did the DNA kit as well, it would come back and determine how closely you two are related. Because it uses generic terms. So like
Mhm.
she's my half aunt, but it labeled her as like a second cousin, just
Yeah.
based on how many DNA markers you share. So my uncle does it. It comes back half sister, and so it is his half sister. She was born the same year as my dad, like 6 months apart.
Wow.
Um,
Did that
my
blow up your whole family with that news? I mean, your
not
grandpa's been gone for a while, so
yeah, my grandpa's been gone since early 2000, but my uncle is the only living sibling left. So
yeah.
uh, my grandparents, up until this woman came into the picture, they had four sons. That's
Mhm.
it. Three of them were gone by the time she reached out to me. So my uncle's the only
Yeah.
one left.
Yeah.
Um, but she seemed, so I didn't mind sharing it with my uncle because she seemed really earnest in her messages. Like
Sure.
she was just trying to find out where she was from.
Yeah.
She wasn't looking to stir up trouble or anything like that. She seemed really genuine. And so what ended up happening is because she gave me her phone number and I gave it to my uncle. They ended up talking on the phone a bunch and sharing things. And looking at her picture, she definitively has ARD features.
She's an ard, yeah.
Yeah. And so um I don't know if it was only the once. I think it was only the once, but my uncle actually went down to visit her, and spent a week with her and got to know her and things like that. And so it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Um, it did take my uncle just a little bit to accept it, but
Yeah,
once he
sure.
did, he's like, okay, you're my half sister. And so
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how close their relationship is at this point. Um, her and I were friends on Facebook. We like each other's posts every now and again.
Sure.
But other than that, we don't have a whole lot. But it's interesting how not uncommon when people do these ancestry kits that skeletons in the family come out. Um,
Yeah, yeah, in your would you I mean, you've obviously been through it, but would you rather know or not know stuff like that? Like if it came out, it was like, "Oh, it turns out I have, like, a half brother over here that I didn't know I had." What would that do to you?
See, and it theoretically could still happen because I know my dad cheated on my mom at one
Okay.
point,
Yeah,
and as far as I know, there was no
right.
child from that. But
But it's a non-zero chance.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, I I'd want to know personally.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, I've heard different people, different. I have a friend who's adopted, and like for the longest time, he didn't care about his biological parents, had no interest. And then he moved to the West Coast, and he found out through I don't know if he was actively looking or just curious, kind of poking around, but found out his biological mom lived in Portland, which was, and he's like, I kind of have to go find out some stuff now, and it helped him at the end of the day. He didn't know he needed the help, but like it was, he's like, wow, I can now know like what actual health history exists in, like
yeah, well, and
that's
that's a big concern for people that are adopted is
yeah.
any predetermined conditions that you might have, your health history.
Yeah, you just don't know a lot of the times. Like, do your parents have any? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
My wife is adopted,
Okay.
and I prefaced this story with both of us taking the Ancestry DNA kit.
Yeah.
she found her parents as well. Her
Well, they weren't your
biological,
parents, right?
well, and we usually just refer to them as her bio donors
Sure.
because they're not her parents, and
Right,
she
right,
does
right,
not
right.
like putting that label on them in general.
I like
So,
that.
but come to find out, so her bio donors, her bios, they they were teenagers, so they gave her up for adoption.
Mhm.
But they ended up getting married. And so my wife has four full blood biological siblings.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. And so she's actually, as far as I know, never communicated with the siblings at all, but she
Yeah.
has reached out to the bio donors on Facebook,
Yeah.
mostly for that
Yeah. Give me your
medical history.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how she found out. So, with my wife's last pregnancy, she had an abdominal hernia,
Mhm.
and she found out that her bio father and his brother have weak abdominal walls. So it's genetics.
Genetic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, but yeah, so
Wow.
uh, they're friends on Facebook. They
Yeah.
occasionally like her posts, but I I
It's
don't.
there's nothing
She
there,
she
right?
doesn't
The
really
thread
yeah,
is
she
yeah.
doesn't really communicate with them or anything like that. Actually, um, I'm still working out the logistics, but if I end up being able to go up for Kurt's what you call it his
Mhm.
celebration of life, I'll be really close to her bio donors because they live
Oh.
up in the Northeast.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so like I think probably only a couple of hours away. But yeah, so yeah, so they're fun, but you
Yeah.
also might get some interesting finds about the family by doing these DNA kits. Well, and
Yeah.
I think 23andMe had a scandal or went under or something.
Yeah, I don't even I think they're still around, but yeah, I think they're like selling off their DNA data,
Yeah,
which is kind of I don't know if it's scary or not, but I have a
it's a
23andMe
little
health kit I
sleazy.
never took. So if that tells you anything. I have a 23andMe health test, not the ancestry side, just like for health. I never did it because I don't really want to know. Like I don't
You're
want to
like,
know if
the
I've got some
diabetes
marker.
can't hurt me if I don't know about it.
I am somewhat of that person. I don't want to be, but I kind of am. Like it really hits the fan and I need to know something, be like, well, maybe it'll get better in a week or two, and then a week or two goes by. Well, maybe if I give it another week or two. It's like, no, you should
I
see somebody.
I I heard a statistic the other day about married men living longer than single men, and
Hmm.
the I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if this is the actual reason, but the joke is that that's because their wife schedules all their doctor's appointments because the men just ignore ignore
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, pretty much. That's I mean look, I'm a spiritual person and I think God made women so that we would do what we're supposed to do because otherwise we would be an absolute disaster. That's not the only
Yep.
reason. Calm down everybody. I'm just saying that jokingly. But we would definitely be in a worse position.
What he's actually saying is that the world would not function properly without women.
See, Joe knows how to say stuff. I have my wife calls it foot and mouth disease. I tend to say things and then rethink it. We actually have an emoji in our Discord called backpedal for me, and it's me leaning out a truck window looking backwards. that's, that's how often that is. Uh, good. That's cool though, man. Nice story.
Yeah. So yeah, we were not expecting as much as we found. Like I mean,
Yeah,
finding my wife's biological donors like that. We always knew in the back of our minds that that was a possibility, but I had
yeah,
never even entertained the thought that there would be skeletons in my family's
yeah,
closet too. So
yeah.
yeah,
That is wild. I love that stuff though, man. I'm a big ancestry nerd. I'm kind of like my family's ancestry person. Like most of them don't care. My dad's cousin handed me all this material she had compiled because she said, "I'm gonna die, and you're the only one that cares about any of this stuff." So she gave it all to
Oh.
me, and there's some neat stuff in there, dude. We've got my family's been here since before the American Revolution. Like, I have an ancestor who was a captain of a boat that brought supplies back and forth to the colonies. So, like, we've been here forever. But I have two patriots in the family that fought in the American Revolution. James Adams and James Adams Jr. both fought. Well, there's court documents for James Adams when he was old and blind, trying to go argue for his pension at the court, his military pension that he was promised that he never received. And it's like this awesome little document about this, but I can only imagine this is a blind old man trying to get his money. It's pretty cool. Like, we came from Virginia down to Alabama, and we're there. Like, shoot, my last 5-6 ancestors, like great grandfathers, were all in the same area of Alabama forever. Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Well, and I've hopped on Ancestry a few times just to see how far back I can go, just playing.
Yeah.
And when you get that far back, the odds of it being accurate
It gets fuzzy.
plummet significantly.
Yeah.
And so, whether or not this is real, I ended up going back into Chinese royalty on one side of my line.
Nice.
And it was to the point where these were historical figures, so I could actually learn about them. And whether or not I'm actually related to them, one of the people that I looked up, it talked about how during his dynasty, he ruled like super fair, was lenient with taxes. He rewarded people based on their merit, and was basically an outstanding guy from the sounds of it. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm related to him.
No, that's great. I found just a bunch of slave owners in my family history. And I'm looking at people like, really? And I'm like, they're all from Alabama, dude. They're all what do you think?
A bunch of my family's from Alabama. I haven't researched to see if any of them were slave owners or anything like that. It's possible.
It's listed on the census. A lot of times they'd have to declare property on the census.
Yeah.
So one of my ancestors declared property of one slave and one wagon. And I was like, oh, great. Awesome. And you have to you build this history in your mind of these people had to be they were the good ones, because it's you feel like they have to be the good ones because you're a good one, you think.
Well, so regardless, you have so many ancestors. It balloons out.
It's incredible.
There are plenty of horrible people, I guarantee, in everyone's family line, and there's plenty of amazing people too. And even going back just to your parents, no one's perfect, but you can learn all kinds of good lessons from history in general.
Yeah.
Regardless of who they are, you can learn either what not to do, or you can find things to emulate. Like we had a little family lesson a couple weeks back where we talked about what ARDs stand for. Just as a family, what do we stand for? And we pulled up the Scottish crest, the ARD crest, the family crest, and the family motto, the ancestral motto, is vigilance. And so we talked to our kids about the importance of vigilance in our daily life and things like that. And regardless of real world stories or anecdotes or whatever, we can still learn lessons from the past.
Yeah. So. That's cool. And as an encouragement to anyone out there looking into ancestry, one thing I heard once that I really, really appreciated is that the miracle of life is in that every single person that came before you managed to make it to childbearing age and have a kid. And that is an amazing thing when you think about it. that you are here because everyone before you made it, and a lot of people didn't. And
Yeah, everyone in your direct line, at least.
yeah, and another thing that I always thought was fascinating is that if you are a couple and you either have no girls or no boys, you are the last in that chain of like take boys for example. If I just had a girl, I would be the last in the chain of men to man all the way down.
Yep.
That would be where it ends. You'd be the last link in the chain of men having boy children. Blows my mind, like when you think about it. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I've got an aunt and uncle where they've got 5 daughters. So
Yeah. So he's the last dude in
Yep.
his direct line from the beginning of everything to now. He's the last guy. Crazy.